Do our conversations about crypto have you wanting to do more with your career? Check out Fidelity, which has been exploring Bitcoin and blockchain since 2014. They were the first traditional asset manager to launch a native crypto business and also among the first to launch a Bitcoin exchange-traded product. So why consider Fidelity? Because they invest in their talent with continuing education programs and they invest in their technology, ensuring associates are working with the latest and greatest so that their crypto teams can continue to improve and evolve their product, staying ahead of the rapidly changing digital asset landscape. With Fidelity's iterative, scalable approach, built to meet today's increasing demands across the digital space and a commitment to developing innovative tools, there's never been a more interesting time to work in crypto and DeFi at Fidelity. Explore Fidelity Crypto Careers today. Go to crypto.fidelitycareers.com to learn more. That's crypto.fidelitycareers.com. Fidelity is an equal opportunity employer. And now it is on with the show. My guest today is Alexander Zahnd. Alexander is the interim CEO and Chief Financial Officer at Zilliqa, a leading layer 1 blockchain platform. Hey, welcome to the show, Alexander.
Hi, Andy, and thank you for having me here today.
It is a pleasure. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show, Alexander. It would be super cool if you could please introduce yourself. Would love to hear some of your personal and professional backstory. What have you been doing in the lead up to joining the team at Zilliqa?
Sure, thank you. So my background is in traditional finance, where I've spent about a decade particularly focused on treasury and large-scale regulatory projects, mainly with banks. That experience gave me quite a strong appreciation for how, trust, compliance, and financial discipline actually underpin any form of real adoption. So when I joined Zilliqa about 4 years ago, I obviously brought that lens with me. And over the past years, I've taken various roles at Zilliqa, including the CFO role, and more recently also the CEO responsibilities. My focus right now is to position Zilliqa not only as the performant blockchain with full EVM compatibility, which it is, but it's also more. It's a platform that is institutionally ready. More to that probably later in the conversation. I personally see this as a very important factor for Zilliqa because from my point of view, the next big wave in Web3 is coming from enterprises as well as regulated environments. And my goal is to make sure that Zilliqa is at the actual front of that anticipated shift.
Fantastic. Well said, Alexander. Well, give us just a bit more of an overview then. I guess the big vision statement kind of stuff of, what Zilliqa is and what you guys are trying to do.
Sure. So I probably have to roll up a little bit of the past because Zilliqa has been around for quite some time. So let me do that and give you a little bit the past and also what we plan to do in the future. So Zilliqa emerged 2017 out of the Technical University of Singapore. It was born out of a technical concept which was introduced back then to solve the scalability problem that was mainly seen on all the bigger layer ones out there, which was sharding. And while the technical implementation and the concept was a cutting edge, it also came with its own problems because when Zilliqa launched, it basically encapsulated itself a little bit because it came not only with a solution to the scalability problem, but it also came with its own smart contract language, which is called Zilla. So over the years, while the tech was cutting edge, the encapsulation led to a bit of an underdevelopment of the ecosystem. And over the years, other concepts have taken the lead in the scalability solution, which is seen by the emerging L2s and even investments in layer ones like Ethereum address more and more the scalability problem. So the cutting edge advantage of Zilliqa back then has gone away during the market development of the past years. So we address this, and we might talk a little bit further about that later. In June this year, so quite recently, Zilliqa launched a fully new or overhauled mainnet infrastructure, which is EVM first. So it's fully EVM compatible, basically removing the high barriers to enter the Zilliqa ecosystem. And that brings us now into a little bit of a catch-up phase. So we're catching up on the ecosystem, we're catching up on many things that have been going on in the market before. At the same time, we're focusing, as I mentioned in the introduction earlier, a lot on making enterprise-ready and regulatory-ready environment for the anticipated shift of that adoption.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anthony. What would be one piece of feedback that you've seen from, say, developers or enterprises that are building on Zilliqa that has, I guess, resonated with you and perhaps shown you a way forward or given you an insight?
Definitely, there is a lot, but I think the feedback that stuck the most with me during the time I've been with Zilliqa already is that adoption from developers as well as from enterprises was burdened by Zilliqa using its own smart contract language. I touched base on that before. The general feedback was that no one wants to retrain teams. And that pushed us to improve and launch actually that new mainnet with full EVM compatibility, but at the same time also heavily invest in tooling, explorers, docs, indexing, and everything that comes along. So teams could now move fast on day one, if you want.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, given your finance background, Alexander, how would you kind of balance, I guess, the ideas of financial rigor on one hand, and making sure everything lines up correctly, but I guess also you want to be rapidly innovating in the world of technology, blockchain, just to keep moving forward as quickly as you can. How do you think about balancing those areas?
This is definitely a very tough balance for me, wearing both hats and having a traditional financial background, focusing on runway, financial planning, risk management, but at the same time also balancing with innovation. But for me, finding that balance is actually also where the most meaningful progress happens. So financial rigor is essentially for building a sustainable business, right? So you cannot run a sustainable company or business if you don't look after your finances. Yet it is often perceived as slowing down innovation. And I have to admit, as a CFO, the role often comes with saying no to a lot of things. That is just simply true. But on the flip side, the pace of blockchain innovation can also sometimes lead to chasing every new hype without enough discipline. And we did that mistake in the past. I guess many did as well. So we learned from that. And the key here is to creating an open dialogue between these two, competing forces, if you want to say, using financial discipline as a stabilizer while still allowing room for bold experimentation. When those perspectives, at least from my point of view, work together, you get innovation that is not just exciting, but is also sustainable and durable for the future.
Yeah. What would you say is one small but crucial feature, or or even just like a point of difference, perhaps, about what Zilliqa is and does in the ecosystem around it that maybe doesn't get enough flowers or enough attention, but perhaps should? People should be aware of it, Alexander.
This is a tough one, actually, given the history of Zilliqa, right? We reinvented ourselves many times. We tried different things. And I mentioned before, we also jumped on the hype train, sometimes with better, sometimes with worse outcome. But anyhow, I would like to split my answer in two. Forgive me that. So first of all, I'm just very proud of what our engineering team achieved with the new mainnet. For me, it's still a technical marvel how they achieved that it is not only, and only is a small term, but it's not only fully EVM compatible, but it is also backwards compatible with Zilliqa's, let's call it legacy smart contract language, Zilla. And for me, it's still quite just surprising how can this even work. So I'm using the network a lot, and to me that is just fascinating every day, even though it doesn't get a lot of attention. The
Yeah.
second part of the answer is something that I would like to highlight, but it has not been released yet. I've been talking about removing barriers to enter on Zilliqa and to build on Zilliqa. So while the first and the most crucial step was done by becoming EVM compatible, we are also developing AI-powered MCP that actually allows anyone to bring their ideas to life on the network without needing like years of coding experience. For me, this is very exciting. I'm a bit of a techie, but I don't have a lot of coding experience. Yet I have ideas. Yet if these tools would have been available a couple of years ago, I would have tried my own experiments on chain already, but that was not possible in the past. So right now, we are already internally testing that by some small hackathons, building our own applications just to test it. And once we'll release it and it will be public, I think that will be quite a game changer for accessibility.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexander. Now, you've talked a lot about making sure that Zilliqa is ready for, I guess, the next wave of enterprise adoption. So just, paint a little bit more of a picture in terms of what you mean by that and what you think is happening. And is this the kind of the next evolution of blockchain?
Sure. That'd probably be a bit of a longer answer. So from my background, I have always been looking at regulation as a form of a necessary evil. But in traditional financial markets, we are used to regulation. We know how to play by the rules. And, eventually it's for the better of the whole ecosystem. So I expect that regulation and regulatory ready environments will gain traction and attention in the future, given that we see a lot of institutional activities, just NASDAQ launching its own chain for tokenized stocks is just a small example. But when you look at the global traditional financial market, which is heavily dependent on regulatory certainty, there is still a lot of potential to be unlocked. So what we did is we partnered just recently with a project out of Liechtenstein. So the Liechtenstein government has its blockchain initiative. This is moved into a joint venture, which is called Liechtenstein Trusted Integrity Network. And there we work very closely together with also GLEAF. So this is a bit of a weird abbreviation, but what they oversee is the issuance and the verification of legal entities. This is the core of traditional financial markets and actually enterprises participating in these markets, because you need a legal entity identifier to do that. So the initiative is looking to get this to the next level. So a verifiable legal entity identifier in the sense that is machine readable, that you can drive automation, but it also gives you access to Web3 ecosystems and to blockchain technology in a regulated environment. Think about it in a way, you could have a subnet or an X shard on Zilliqa that only allows participants to use this part of the chain or the subchain if they verify themselves through a verifiable legal entity identifier, basically creating a bit of an encapsulated but not as isolated ecosystem that is regulatory ready and that can, you have the full transparency that regulators are looking for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Alexander, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that. What about, is there anything else happening in Web3, or perhaps, any emerging use cases across, Web3 use cases such as, NFTs or DeFi, anything that you see kind of maybe triggering another wave of perhaps retail participation, anything like that the Zilliqa team are looking at?
DeFi is certainly a big enabler for, has always been for blockchain technology, but I don't want to bring that example because it's basically a known concept, right? So what I find quite interesting is permissioned data networks, right? So you look at supply chains sharing private events on a sovereign chart while publishing proofs publicly. So that also goes hand in hand a little bit with what I said before, right? So you can have dedicated subnets or X shards, which are more or less private, but you can still publish certain form of information to the main chain through that interoperability. So that to me is very exciting also because it fits a bit the roadmap of Zilliqa, but I also find it generally interesting. On top of that, everything that is verifiable compute or AI agents that is entered on chain, I find quite interesting because AI changed our lives a lot. But to make it verifiable, on the data source level, but also on the output level, is a very exciting concept to me.
Yes, indeed. All right. And, just to bring it back to your leadership, I guess, Alexander, how are you finding it being the CEO? And, is there sort of, do you get any of those kind of aha moments when you think this is what I should be doing, and it makes it kind of worthwhile trying to lead a blockchain project, which can be challenging and stressful at times, I'm sure.
I guess there are probably many of these aha moments. I may have them several times a day. But I think when looking back, and I only slipped into that role a couple of months ago, so there will be more of these coming up. But for me, one of the particular milestones, and I bring it up again, apologies. So shipping Zilliqa 2 was a major technical project. And if you probably a lot of the audience has led technical projects themselves, you know how complicated it can be. There are many pitfalls that you don't foresee initially, and then you have your milestones and you need to postpone, which can be very stressful. So on the new mainnet, we have been working for a bit over 2 years and very close to the launch date. Everybody gets stressed out and nobody knows, will it be launched on that day or not? So for me, what I learned is that you rather turn like big bang bets, if you want to call it that way, into more of progressive cutovers. So I think pairing architectural leaps with a pragmatic migration approach and the tooling is the way to go.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Well, as we start to finish up this part of the podcast, Alexander, for users, for potential enterprise users, for developers, for anyone listening that wants to dive deeper into the Zilliqa ecosystem, what is the best way that people can do that? What are some of the things they can do, and where should they go? What should they do?
So it's always interesting because you can look at weaknesses and turn it into strengths, right? It's a bit of how it's two sides of the same medal and how you look at it. For me, and again, I mentioned it in the beginning, Zilliqa is currently in a catch-up mode from an ecosystem point of view. So you can look at it as a form of a greenfield development, right? This may look scary, but at the same time, it comes with amazing opportunities. If you want to bring or launch your idea on any chain, if you go on Base, if you go on Solana or any other chain, you have a very mature ecosystem and it's hard to compete. But on Zilliqa, given that we are in this catch-up phase, your idea actually makes a difference and can make an impact. So I encourage anyone that I talk to, try it out, bring your ideas, try to launch your application on chain, come to Zilliqa. We have a community, we have users, and we have a green field where people actually want to see things happening and are willing to participate.
All right, very nice. So the website, folks, is simply zilliqa.com, but yeah, that website is in the show notes. Time to go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off by running Alexander through the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round. Back in 1 second. And we are back. And Alexander, it is time to finish off the show, and we do that, of course, by running you through the very famous Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round. Are you up for it?
Yes, certainly.
Just going to put some questions to you, Alexander. I just want you to give me like real quick kind of hot take style answers, if you like. See what you have to say. Question 1 for you is, Alexander, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Rather on the Bitcoin maximalist side.
Yeah. Okay, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion, Alexander?
My background in traditional finance taught me that I have a little bit of an anarchistic core inside myself. That's what initially has drawn me to crypto and blockchain. And now I've spent a lot of time talking about regulation in crypto. So yeah, it's a bit tough.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Look, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So 10 years is a long time, Alexander, as you know. But, Zilliqa, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, Zilliqa will be known as the regulatory interface, where every regulated institution that wants to participate in DeFi or in blockchain or in tokenized markets has to go through to verify itself.
Very nicely said. Very nicely said. All right. Another way of thinking about this, Alexander, is it's a wonderful quote by sci-fi author William Gibson, who, of course, said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So with that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
That brings me back to an example that I have in my everyday life, right? I use AI changed the way how I work and live entirely. I give you an example from my private life. My wife wanted to go on holiday. I didn't have the time or capacity to plan the trip. So I completely outsourced it to ChatGPT, and it was a wonderful holiday. However, when I talk to the majority of people, they don't use it yet that much. So for me, this is the future, which is already here, and certain people have access to it, but it has not yet, it's not yet evenly distributed across all who could participate in it.
Could not agree more. Fantastic example. All right. It's time to start to close out the show, Alexander. The final question for you is very simply, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
I must say it's probably Dune. I've read the book when I was young, and I most recently just saw the 2 movies, and I quite liked them.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, no, the Dune movies, particularly the second one, excellent films, weren't they? Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today and spending some time with us, Alexander. We reached the end of the show. Just to close it out, again, look, direct people to the Zilliqa website and, tell them why they should get involved.
Yeah, so Zilliqa.com website is completely rebranded and overhauled with the launch of the new mainnet. There are a lot of additional resources that help people to actually get started. Even if you are not a full hands-on developer, there are tools that help you to bring your idea to life. And I encourage everyone to try it out.
Yes, indeed. Link is in the show notes, Zilliqa.com. Thank you so much, Alexander. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you, Andy. It was a pleasure.